Okay, guys, as promised, I am going to record some of the ed puzzles. Hopefully by Monday, I won't sound like my nose is going to fall off my face. The first unit, and we go out of order a little bit here because it's important to understand where ecosystems come from, and they all start with the health of the soil. So that's why we started with soil a little bit, and we'll come back to soil. But we started with unit 4. We talked a little about soil and how it formed. And now we're going to move into ecosystems because obviously the plant life that dominates an ecosystem is based on the soil that's there, which you probably already know because you just took your test. So we're starting with ecosystems, and I'm not going to go through this, but it's here for you if you need to know. Basically, this essential knowledge is content that you need to be able to do or answer questions about when it comes to the AP test. I'm not going to read it to you because you can all read. So we look at ecosystems, we look at organisms, and when we look at ecosystems, we look at one organism, one species, one individual organism. Then we build from there. A population is a group of individuals of the same species. So an individual is one elk, a population is all the elk in one ecosystem, in one small area, okay? Then you've got a community, which is all the living things in one area. I feel like I'm screaming. All the living things in one area. So that's all the elk, all the rabbits, all the owls, all the trees, all the plants, the grasses, the bacteria, all of those things. That's the community in one area. Next, we have the ecosystem, which is all the living and non-living things in the area. So that's all the plants, all the animals, plus all the abiotic factors, because as you know, or you should, that the living things are biotic and the non-living things are abiotic. So the ecosystem includes the living plus the non-living, like rocks, the soil, the water, the air, and anything else that would fall into that, the amount of insulation from the sun, all of those things are considered non-living or abiotic factors. And then above that is the biome. A biome is the largest area that has similar climate conditions. Those climate conditions then determine the plant and animal species that can live there. Tropical rainforest is a biome, the tundra is a biome, the taiga is a biome. All of those are just examples. And you also have aquatic biomes as well. They are defined a little bit differently than terrestrial biomes, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So within these ecosystems, within these populations and communities, we have interactions between organisms. There's 4 main types. There's competition, which is organisms fighting over a resource in order to survive. In most cases, both organisms are negatively impacted by competition. Next is predation. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. Then it's mutualism. Mutualism is when both organisms benefit. So like in a coral reef, think of Nemo and the sea anemone. Oh, sea anemone. Yeah. Okay. Mutualism. And then commensalism is where one organism benefits and the other one isn't impacted. A tree isn't bothered if a bird's nest is put in it. The whale doesn't care if a barnacle is attached to it. So all of these are examples of commensalism. In mutualism, when both organisms benefit, we said the clownfish and the sea anemone, but also you could think of the ant and the acacia tree. That's like the common example that everybody talks about. In predation, it's one organism using another for energy. So parasites, even herbivores can be considered predation because the herbivores are eating, negatively impacting the plant, although some plants do benefit from a little bit of that. So herbivores are plant eaters. They eat plants for energy. True predators are organisms like carnivores that kill and eat prey for their own energy. Things like the leopard eats a giraffe or the lion eats a gazelle. Parasites are also a type of predation. Parasites use that host organism for energy. Usually they don't kill the host, they just live inside the host or they live off of the host. They don't usually kill it. So here is a sea lamprey, and that's living off of that organism, that fish. And then parasitoids, they lay their eggs inside of host organisms. The eggs hatch and then the larvae eat the host for their energy. That's happening here. this wasp is laying its eggs in this caterpillar, and then they will eat the caterpillar. All of these are examples of what we call symbiosis. It's when organisms interact with each other in order to survive. Mutualism, commensalism, parasitism, and predation are all symbiotic relationships. Mutualism, we said, different organisms, different species living close together that benefits both of them. Coral is a really great example of that because the coral are the animal. They provide structure for algae and carbon dioxide. The algae provides sugars and for the coral to use as energy. So that is like a really great example of the coral reef and that mutualistic relationship. Next, lichens are, they are part of fungi. They're a composite organism of fungi that lives with algae. The algae, again, decomposes things and provides sugars, and the fungi also provides nutrients. So all of these things are symbiotic relationships. When organisms compete, it tends to reduce population size because there's fewer resources available, which means fewer organisms can survive. So what ends up happening is the organisms go through what we call resource partitioning, which reduces the competition between the organisms because they figure out a way to use the same resource in different ways. For example, I'm just going to use a normal human example, not an ecosystem example, but I'll give one of those in a second. For example, when we order chicken wings, I like my husband likes the drumstick and I like the other part. I don't know what it's called. Then we get the same number of wings because you usually get the same number of each of those and we're both happy. No one's fighting over the same type of wing. In ecosystems, the biggest example that we usually use is birds nesting in different parts of a tree. Depending on where they nest, that is going to determine what type of bird. Each bird nests in a different area. Temporal resource partitioning means timing. So when organisms hunt, you can also look at how or the type of roots that organisms have. So if you take a look here, these roots are taking nutrients from much deeper in the soil, whereas these are taking nutrients closer. So depending on how they reduce competition, it's going to look different for each species. So, like I said, temporal partitioning is using the resources different times, when they hunt, different time of day, different time of year if you're talking about laying eggs. Spatial partitioning is that they're using different areas of a shared habitat. That's like the birds using the tree for their nesting. And then, see, there's my nesting. And then morphological partitioning means that over time, evolutionarily, the organisms evolve different features to allow them to share resources. All right. So if you take a second, this is a released question from the past, but try to think about organisms that compete for a shared resource and how they could reduce competition between the two organisms. So take a look at the food web and try to identify ways that they could go through resource partitioning. Hopefully you remember how to read a food web. Oh, fingers crossed. All right, so that's it for introduction to ecosystems. I hope this was better than Mr. Smedes, and I'll have to come up with a cute saying to sign off to every day. But as of right now, I don't have one. So peace out, kids. Oh, now I can't find the stop recording.